Episode 10 of the studio begins with Griffin dancing away in the fountain. There are numerous people walking about that don't pay him much attention. That's just as well because Matt and the others do eventually catch up, just as he's performing, oral to the statue. It's here where Matt opens up and tells Patty about Continental's sale to Amazon, explaining why they're all spiraling and crazy. This turns Patty's initial revenge plan into a rescue operation, as they need to figure out what to do with him, and evade the journo in the process. Matt and the others eventually decide to enact some movie magic, and that comes from heading back to the casino with Griffin propped up in a disguise. The journalist Baloney shows up, but the disguise works to throw him off the trail. Back at the hotel room, the gang get Griffin dressed, but unfortunately, a lot of the group are also high, including Maya, who kisses Matt, and Zoe Kravitz, who's completely out of it. The presentation is about to begin as well, and unfortunately, they're out of time. Dave Franco steps up first and improvs his way through the opening presentation, and as the trailer for the film begins up on screen, Zoe is up next. Patty works to buy the group some time first, though, before Zoe effortlessly reads the teleprompter. It all comes down to Griffin's presentation, but instead, Matt steps up and delivers his speech before starting a chant of movies, just as Griffin is dropped from the ceiling and prance around the stage like a literal puppet. The episode. Review. So the studio ends with an episode that doubles down on the crude humor and devolving into drug-fueled shenanigans, all whilst completely forgetting what this show was supposed to be about in the process. At times, the studio has been a good satire on the movie industry, but it's pretty amusing that through all of this, it struggled to actually get to the root cause of why Hollywood is failing so badly. I guess the fact this studio doesn't take the industry seriously enough a day before a big presentation, getting completely high and worrying more about a journalist and theater owners than the public perception is indicative of how little Hollywood actually cares about its audience. The Mai show has also been woefully inconsistent with its characters. We have famous actors mixed in with actors playing unknown roles, character arcs that flip-flop between episodes, and an inconsistent amount of comedy that can't quite decide what it wants to say. With a second season already greenlit, it's clear that people are vibing with this one, but it's undeniably flawed in its execution too. Episode 9 of Government Cheese begins with us taking a look at Einstein's demo tape for his pole vaulting. He teaches the different steps on how to effectively complete the technique, with specific emphasis on how if one part of the process is off, it all falls apart. Einstein is about to have an interview at Rocket Corp, though, and this gets Hampton thinking. He rings through to Manny and learns that a prospective businessman called Dremel is bound to show at the company soon to look over their slew of different tools. Manny doesn't think they're ready for this, but Hampton is convinced it's the right play to pitch their drill. He believes that when he sees the Bit Magician, they'll have a home run and manage to get a good cash flow going. Manny, though, has cold feet and doesn't want to rock the boat. He also warns Hampton away from just showing up in the building. However, Hampton wants to use Einstein's interview as a way of getting into Rocket Corp so he can try and sell the drill. Einstein's mind is elsewhere, though, wanting to pursue his pole vaulting instead. When Einstein heads in for his interview, Hampton tries to worm his way in to meet with Dremel. He sneaks in the back, evading guards as he does, and eventually finds Dremel. Hampton shows off the designs for his Bit Magician to the big man, and he actually greenlights this with 10 units. Hampton cheekily asks for payment up front, but of course that's not how things fly here. Einstein shows off the back of his interview and jokes around with Dremel. It's actually enough to convince the guy to have the money ready to go in advance for Hampton when he shows up at his office the following day. Meanwhile, Detectives Barfield and Hargrove continue to work the Temple heist case, trying to work out how Bootsy ended up on the roof in the first place. The general thinking here is that he was chased up by a neighborhood dog, and when the cops showed patrolling the area, he slipped inside the chimney, but the fumes caused him to slip into a coma. The known associates with Bootsy that they have include some of the Prevost brothers, including Jean-Guy. This is enough for the officers to head back to the temple to question the rabbi about what he may know. However, they also have Hampton's name too, and this, coupled with the man's parole officer purring about Hampton's self-sharpening, drill is enough to convince the detectives to look into him in more detail. Elsewhere, Astoria finds out that her work is doing well and making waves. Mr. Brees brings the good news to her, and that means she has a way to better her life, but it means moving to San Francisco. When Astoria heads home, she finds the detectives waiting for her. They hand over their card, and it's enough to throw a big spanner in the works. Hampton heads home, and Astoria immediately confronts him about what he's been doing this past weekend. Hampton mentions the incident in C Block and how everything has escalated to the Temple heist. Astoria chuckles incredulously and brings up how Bootsy is in a coma. Hampton is shocked and realizes that this certainly isn't the end of it.